Imagine an airy workspace that feels like a modern oasis, or a cafe that's cosy and inviting, or a vibrant shopfront that draws customers in. Whatever space you're dreaming up, the IKEA Business Network is here to help you create a better everyday life at work. Join the IKEA Business Network for free and instantly access benefits including a one-on-one with an interior designer, member discounts and perks for your staff and family. So go on, join the IKEA Business Network now at ikea.com.au/business.
Hello and welcome to First Act, the podcast where we uncover the inspiring origin stories behind Australia's most innovative entrepreneurs, business owners and influencers. I'm your host, Cess Busby, and if there's one thing that I really find interesting about our First Act conversations, it's that passion projects can really turn into life-changing, fantastic business success stories.
That's what this podcast is all about. I'm Adam Bubb, Cess's co-host. There's something really powerful about resilience, and that's one of the things that comes through in all of our conversations. We've recorded so many this year. I encourage everyone to listen back to those episodes because there are so many life lessons to take from this. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or if you just like interesting stories about really extraordinary people. And look, there's so much to learn about resilience, especially when life gives you unexpected twists. And today's guest has experienced that firsthand, taking her passion from health and wellness from humble beginnings to a multi-million-dollar empire.
Yes, today we're thrilled to welcome Irene Falcone. Now, Irene turned her passion for low-tox products into Nourished Life, a business that she grew from her garage into a $20 million empire. Then after selling Nourished Life, she launched Sans Drinks, a pioneering brand in the non-alcoholic beverage space long before everyone else jumped on the bandwagon. And although Sans Drinks faced its own challenges and went into administration, it rose from the ashes and got a buyer, Irene hasn't let that slow her down. And now she's launched a new venture in the clean beauty space called Clean Nectarine. So Irene, it's really great to have you on the show today. Can't wait to unpack your story.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Irene, it's wonderful to have you. Look, you've had so many acts. I mean, this show is First Act, but we're gonna talk about a couple of yours. Where does this drive to launch and grow brands come from?
It's a really interesting that you asked that. I was actually laying in bed last night with my husband and blown away by what I had pulled myself out of. And I said to him, "Do you remember about 5 or 6 months ago, I turned to you and I was crying, same place in bed. And I said, I have this," because he said, "What's wrong? You should be happy. What's wrong? You should be happy. Sans Drinks is dealt with," because that was a really traumatic experience, which we can talk about. You're out of that now. You're in the clear. You should have nothing to worry about now. You can just relax. And I said, I have this burning desire to create something and I can't explain it. I can't explain the desire that I have, but I just feel so incredibly strong about this pull. I have this pull that I wish I didn't have it. I wish I could just go and relax and read a magazine or go on a boat. I had bought a boat in between and I thought I'm just going to, cruise the harbour. There was just nothing I wanted to do but create something again. And you asked what it is and I can't describe it. It's a universal pull. And so last night I said to my husband, "Do you ever have that feeling of this burning desire to do something and this deep, like I'm going to call it, this really deep sadness when you're not doing it or you're not starting it?" And he looked at me, he's a police officer, and he said, "Nope." Nope. And I said, well, perhaps that's a good thing that isn't what everybody feels. Perhaps that's something that just some people feel and everybody can fulfill their own desires in their own way. And fulfilling my desire of what I want to do is, very personal and deep to me. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the best way that I can describe that.
So burning desires, let's take a step back to the beginning with Nourished Life. Like, it was an online beauty retailer, but very different to beauty retailers of the time, because you were so passionate about creating a business that only sold products that were good. Like, they weren't full of toxic parabens and propylene glycol or any of the nasties that abounded in beauty products at the time. What was the moment for you, the aha moment where you went, I need to start this brand?
I was working for Universal Pictures, and it was owned by GE. It could not be more corporate. And I had a lot of premieres, and I had left Revlon. Actually, I was working in the beauty space, and then I had sort of taken that job. And I was putting what I found was over 200 different chemicals on my body every day. I wasn't feeling that great. And with being in corporate, we had this opportunity to volunteer, to do volunteer work one day, I think one day a month. And I had picked a company called the National Toxic Network, and they were, they would lobby government about different things. And one of the things they were lobbying the government about was to get BPA taken out of baby bottles, plastic out of baby bottles. And actually they achieved that. And it was super inspiring to me, because I had just had a baby, and I didn't realize that I was feeding him with a bottle that had toxins in the plastic. And when you leave a bottle of water in your car and it gets hot, that water leaches the plastics into the water. And that was all really new to me. And then from there, I started realizing what I was putting in and on my body. And I started doing some research. And I went home and I sort of looked around at all my Revlon and all my other products that I had. I was a bit of a beauty junkie. And I realized that everything that I owned in my home had parabens in it, propylene glycol, sulfate, everything that you can imagine was in this. And so I really cracked it, and I grabbed this garbage bag and I just threw thousands and thousands of dollars away. And I've said this story before, but I remember again my husband saying, "Hey, Irene, where's my deodorant?" And what had happened was we didn't have anything to put on we didn't have any shampoo and any deodorant anymore. And so from there, I had no choice but to find replacements. And so I was looking for natural alternatives for all of these products, and they didn't exist. They really didn't exist back then. It was interesting because at that time, Facebook had just launched, and I was setting up the Facebook page for Universal, and I thought I'll just set up one for myself on how to live toxin-free in the city. It was just like a blog that I had written. And I started this page, and I was talking about how to find natural alternatives to everyday products. And it got picked up by a current affair. So a current affair contacted me, and they said that they wanted to do a story on me, mum of 4 goes toxin free. It was just, anyway, I wasn't allowed to do a current affair because of my ties with my corporate job. They felt that it was just a little risky, so I couldn't do it. But I did go back to them and said maybe I could do something little not so strong. And so I ended up doing an interview with Channel 9 Mornings. And in that interview on TV, they said to me, "Wow, you are selling natural products to replace mainstream products. That's really unheard of." Like, it was such a big controversial thing back then. I mean, now you'd be hard pressed finding anything with parabens in it these days. Most stores don't sell those sorts of things, and companies don't use those ingredients anymore. So Nourished Life was really about selling products without a whole bunch of ingredients in it that everyone knows now to avoid. But there's this whole other level now, which is what Clean Nectarine's about, which we can talk about. But that's how Nourished Life started. And then from there, I ended up, after that television appearance, I ended up quitting my job and selling my house and my car. So I didn't have a mortgage or any payments. And then I moved into a little rental, and from there, replaced my income within 3 or 4 months. And then it grew. Nourished Life just grew. It was an out-of-body experience, that business. It was the most magical out-of-body experience, and it was just wonderful. And all the stars that aligned, though, it was the perfect storm. So back then, you would put $1 on Facebook, you'd get $12 back. You'd put a post on social media. Instagram wasn't even there then. You'd put a post on Facebook, everyone would see it, and it would just convert. And then the US dollar was really on par with ours. So I was able to import products and sell them without having too much of an exchange rate issue. So there was that. There was the fact you couldn't get natural products anywhere else. So there was such a perfect storm. And that is, I think, part of what made Nourished Life so incredibly successful,
It grew at such a massive rate. How did you manage to keep up with the scale of the business when it was moving so rapidly?
I'm very good at that, managing growth. I had a really good team of people around me, like in terms of people that I had hired, which was good. Also, it was tough. I remember going through, I think I've gone through 30 different accountants during Nourish Life's time because it was really hard to find an accountant that understood e-commerce back then. Shopify and those sorts of things weren't that great then. I was on a custom built platform back then, so that was challenging. I had a really good web developer that was able to do a lot of things that you couldn't get on off a platform back then. Yeah, I look back now and it's really interesting because I look at my business now and I stop. I stop promoting stuff now. I just have to pull back because I don't want it to grow as quick as Nourish Life did. And I can see that happening already because it wasn't healthy. I didn't eat and I lost a lot of weight. I ended up in hospital because I had run myself to the ground. I'd burnt my adrenals. So it was interesting because I was promoting natural products and being natural and healthy, but I was actually not very well because I was always working. But we did it.
That says so much about what we view as success in society. Like a business can be doing extremely well, and you might be doing TV interviews and you might be putting on a brave face and everything, going to meetings and meeting new clients and signing new deals, and things might all be going so swimmingly for the business. But at the heart of every business is a person. And you're undoubtedly the beating heart of all the businesses that you've launched and created. So you have to be taking care of yourself first. You made the bold move to sell Nourished Life. Was it that personal element that contributed to you making that decision, or how did that work?
It wasn't a bold move. I've made a couple of very bad decisions actually in business, and I'm so obsessed with having written them down and making sure that I don't repeat them again. I sold Nourish Life because I stupidly believed at the time that I needed a big, strong man behind me. I was doing it on my own. I didn't have a partner. I had staff, but ultimately I was leading the $20 million business on my own without any help. And I strongly believe that I need a big, strong man to back me, a big, strong company to back me. I had Adore Beauty at the time decide all of a sudden that they were going to be a natural beauty store as well, and rip through all of the products that I had stocked and decided that they were also going to have, a Nourished Life section. That was really hard for me because they came after me, and then I'd have all these other businesses also jumping on the natural beauty trend, and all of a sudden I was under huge risk of losing revenue and losing profit, and I needed that revenue and I needed that profit because I had 40 staff that I had to take care of, that I was responsible for on my team. I had full-time staff and they needed to be paid. I had 2 or 3 different warehouses at the time. I was paying rent on those. I had huge bills. There's a lot of bills that come with a $20 million business, and I needed the cash flow to keep coming through. And if other businesses were coming in to take that away from me, I became super, super nervous about that. And so I sold it in a state of fear. I mean, Adore were backed by Woolworths at the time, and then they were backed by someone else, the people they are now. So I felt that the only way I could compete was to also get backing, and that is why I sold it. The company that bought Nourish Life destroyed not just my will to live, like they destroyed my soul. They destroyed my business, and they destroyed my customers' trust in my business as well. They did everything from not sending any orders out correctly for the first year, and then after that probably still didn't, all the way through to what made Nourish Life so special was my ingredients policy and what I wouldn't stock. It was traumatic to see that because I had built something and I had built it and I had sold it because I wanted the business to grow, not to go backwards.
How do you get over that trauma? By doing something else?
Yeah, I got over that trauma by drinking copious amounts of alcohol and crying every night. I said to them, the new owners, I said, you make me cry every night in the bottom of my shower with a bottle of vodka. So I did that, and then I realized I was drinking too much. So I decided to stop drinking, And then, I went into Dan Murphy's to try and find some non-alcoholic drinks to help me stop drinking. And I'm telling you, this is no word of a lie. The guy behind the counter looked at me the same way that someone looked at me in 2011 when I asked for a natural deodorant at Priceline. And I went, holy moly, this is my next aha moment. I'm going to, now that I can't do anything in beauty, what can I do that's as close as possible to being natural what else can I disrupt? And so I left Nourished Life, obviously, and I decided I'm going to start Sans Drinks and bring alcohol-free drinks to Australia to disrupt the liquor industry.
Well, it was such a fantastic idea at the time because especially so many people had been going overboard with their drinking during COVID that
Yeah.
non-alcoholic beverages became really of the zeitgeist, and you were right there when it happened. I think the difference with Sans Drink as well was like, yeah, you could go to Dan Murphy's and get this and that, but you were very, very specialized. You had fantastic non-alcoholic champagnes. You had gorgeous spirits. It wasn't like, the liars and the whatever that you could find anywhere.
Well,
So
you couldn't find them at Dan Murphy's then. You could only find them at Dan Murphy's once Dan Murphy's found me and came into my
yeah.
store. And they were in my store like every time they came, because their head office is in Melbourne. Every time they came to Sydney, they do a special visit, and they spent way too much time in my store. And then all of a sudden they opened up. All of a sudden, isn't that funny? After I started Sans Drinks, that Dan Murphy's became Dan Zero. That was a real eye-opener. I've never seen anything. I have never seen anything like what Dan Murphy's did to me. I honestly shocked on the speed and the aggressive nature to put someone out of business. That blew my, especially from a business that was selling alcohol when I was very clearly selling the opposite of what and I'm using Dan Murphy's as an example. It's really all of the liquor industry that I'm talking about. All of them are just as bad as each other.
It must have been heartbreaking again, like you build up this business and then in this instance, it's a competitor comes in and decides to demolish you,
Yeah.
and your whole business ends up having to go into administration. So, and you have
Yeah.
the beautiful flagship store.
Yeah. Two stores. So this is what had happened. This is what happened. So because of that incident, the targeted demolishing of my business, I thought the only way I'm going to compete with them is to create my own products. Every time I unearth or find a beautiful new non-alcoholic sparkling wine or whatever, and they're going to just jump on it and sell it for cheaper. And certainly the brands that I was working with, the Liars and all of those brands, they really used me as a stepping stone. A lot of brands actually would launch in Sans Drinks and then they would end up selling it to putting my prices up and then selling it cheaper to people like Dan's, and then they would undercut me and then I wouldn't be able to sell their products anymore. So there was a lot of stuff going on that I had not seen before in business, because that just doesn't happen in the beauty industry. And so I thought, oh, well, bugger that. I'm going to make all my own products then, because if I talk about a product and then the next minute it's on a shelf in a liquor store, then yeah, I might as well make my own. So I ended up making all of my own products. We're talking about, I think I did about 30 products under various names and brand names. And because there was no middleman, I made amazing products, absolutely. And you can still get those products because they're still on Sans Drinks. But the products that I created are without question the best tasting non-alcoholic drinks in the world globally. But to make a SKU, one product, it was, like $100,000. And so because they sold so well, and this is when I was doing really well, I opened up a shop at Westfield. I had the flagship shop at Freshwater. I had all of these products and I was just making more and more because people kept buying them. They were clearly the best ones, which was great. So everything was great. But we're talking about millions of dollars of product in production. And again, it was growing. I got to 8 million, in 2 years, Sans Drinks on my own, right? And again, and that was all my own brand. as well. I sold everyone else's brand, but really mine were the best selling ones. And if you went into the shop, they were all pretty much my brands, which was great. Good margin, everything was just cranking. Great. Had all the Woolworths and Coles and the Dans and whatever emailing the brands that I'd created, not knowing that I'd own them, asking to stock them. And it was just really great. I got to say, yeah, no, sorry, it's exclusive to Sans Drinks. It's exclusive to Sans Drinks. But it really gave me a lot of insight on how quickly they jump on these brands that I promote on social. Anyway, so that was happening, and I was creating all of those products. And then I can't even tell you how expensive it is to do a fit out at Westfield. The cost is enormous. Anyway, so we're up to millions and millions and millions of my personal money now that I've invested in Sans Drinks. And then I had wine on the water. I was paying $50,000 just for the shipping container at that time because we're, COVID and all of those things. So we're talking millions of dollars. And then all of a sudden the interest rates kept coming up and everyone stopped buying. I'm telling you, we went from doing 500 orders a day, 1,000 orders a day to all of a sudden, overnight, a couple hundred orders. And then I had the staff to pay, I had the overheads to pay, I had rent to pay, and the revenue, it stopped, and I had stuff to pay, and I just kept pouring more and more of my own money into it. When I went into administration, I was by far the biggest creditor, and I did, in true entrepreneur style, I didn't get any of that money back. When I sold the business sold for $2 million. That went to pay all the creditors except for me. So I said, just pay everyone else, don't pay me. And that's what happened. I sold my house again. That's where sort of how that story ended. The business was sold to Just Wines, and I got to say, after selling a business the second time, it's been really interesting to see how fantastic and capable that company is compared to the company I sold Nourished Life to. So it's not, selling a business isn't always bad, because I've had the experience of selling one business to a bunch of clowns and then another business to a company that really know what they're doing. So I think Sans Drinks is just going so well. I'm still an ambassador for that business, and I still drink the drinks, and love working with them, and it's just a fantastic place. Yeah, I'm very grateful as well that they were able to save my hard work.
Gosh, Irene, I think anybody listening would want to just say thank you, because you're so generous in just kind of running us through those various highs and lows that a business owner can go through, especially if you built something up that you have a real emotional investment and financial investment in. And then having to see what happens with legacy with the brand. And I just think, thank you. And this is an early thank you from people listening. We're going to get on to Clean Nectarine very shortly, but we're just going to take a very, very short break, and we'll be back with more from Irene Falcone.
Need to refresh your workspace? Want discounts for your business, your staff and your family? The IKEA Business Network is here to help you create a better everyday life at work. Join the IKEA Business Network and instantly access a range of exciting benefits tailored to your unique business needs. It's free to join, and you get access to quick fix design tips, member discounts, and some amazing perks for your people at over 400 retailers. Join the IKEA Business Network now at ikea.com.au/business.
We're back with First Act with Irene Falcone. Now, Irene, starting over, you've done it once before, you're doing it again. You've bounced back really pretty quickly, considering it's only a year or so since Sans Drinks had to be sold on to another buyer. So what inspired you to get back into the whole entrepreneurial scene yet again, and why was clean beauty something you had your eyes on again?
Even whilst I was at Sans Drinks, I yearned for Nourished Life. And whilst the people I'd sold it to I had approached them many, many times with various investors to buy that business back. And I tried to go back there and run it many, many times. So for me, it was very much like the baby I'd given away that I just wanted back. so badly. And a lot of Sans Drinks was trying to fill a gap, a hole in my heart. But Nourished Life I was born, I don't know what to say, I was born to sell natural products. Anyway, Nourished Life has since been sold. When that company when the owners went into liquidation, that company has been sold to an overseas company now, and they're taking it into a different direction. And obviously, I approached them as well to see if I could come and again work with them. Anyway, it's been a year since Sans Drinks sold, and I've done a lot of soul searching, a lot of understanding my desire to create and what I really want, and speaking to a lot of customers and understanding the market and all of those things. So this is the crazy thing. I just didn't expect another aha moment. This is what I was going to do. I was just going to do something small, just something to feed the hole in my heart, the desire that I have to create and to find beautiful products for Australian women who are better for them. And I know ingredient policies and I know all these things, so I'm going to put that to use. So I was just going to do something small out of my garage.
Sounds familiar.
Back to the garage we go. Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. And I wasn't going to do anything big because I'm bruised and battered from falling over throughout the journey. And I also didn't want to lose any more money as well, because there's a point where I go, all right, enough is enough. I've got my family to think about. I can't keep throwing money into businesses. So I started Clean Nectarine. And what I thought Clean Nectarine was going to be, which is a small business selling natural products, competing with Nourished Life. I was just going to do another Nourished Life. And there's a market there because people really love me because I'm very honest, and my customers love me, and they'll be very happy to shop with me because they know that when they shop with me, they're going to get their order and all of those things. And I'm going to check the ingredients for them. But I didn't need a lot of customers. I'm just quite happy for a few customers. That would be enough. Anyway, what I realized very quickly was my first business was about disrupting the beauty industry, the mainstream beauty industry, the Revlons and the L'Oreals of the world. What Clean Nectarine is doing is disrupting the natural beauty industry that I created, because I can't believe it with my own eyes, the amount of shit people are selling in so-called natural beauty stores, clean beauty stores and brands that are full of toxins again.
It is wild
other toxins
out there.
Right? What the heck? I can't believe even me, I ordered products from brands that I just knew that were clean brands. And when I got them in my garage, I looked on the back of them and I couldn't believe what was inside them. So what I've realized for Clean Nectarine is it's disrupting the natural beauty industry. I've created something again. Oh my God, I've done it again. I found a gap in the market. There is a huge gap in the market. No one's doing it. I have studied the Sephora Clean, the Whole Foods Clean, all their policies, and I have looked at all the other stores and what they're selling out there, health food stores, Healthy Life, all of these. There's so many of them. How could anyone possibly need another clean beauty store? Oh boy, we do. There is a gap in the market for a one-stop superstore selling all natural health and beauty products that are actually really natural. And that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. You can go to the other stores and find bits and bobs, but you can't go there and close your eyes and order anything you want and not have to think about it. And so what I did was I created what I call the Unclean 13, and it's a very clear ingredients policy that I haven't seen anywhere else in Australia, where it lists 13 ingredients that you can find pretty commonly in other natural products or natural stores that you will not find at Clean Nectarine. And these are over and above the usual suspects. So we're not talking about,
propylene glycol, sodium lauryl sulfate.
Yeah, that's a given, right? Aluminium. Yeah, exactly. We are talking about these examples like this. An example might be potassium alum, right? Crystal deodorants. crystal deodorants are made with potassium alum, and it's a form of aluminium, right? All the natural stores sell them. So you won't get that in my store, right? No potassium alum. You will not be able to buy a water filter in my store that uses activated aluminum, right, to remove the fluoride. You will not be able to find a natural toothpaste in my store that contains fluoride. Right, you won't be able to get that from me. Now, this isn't about a fluoride debate. This is about people who want to avoid fluoride don't need to worry about checking the ingredients. They can shop with me. And so I thought, okay, well, I've redefined what clean means. I've filled a gap in the market. And you know what I did? I cleared out my husband and I's super, and we bought a warehouse, and I'm moving out of my garage next Wednesday, and I'm going hard.
You heard it here first, everyone. Irene's going hard.
I'm not now just going to do another Nourished Life. I'm going to do another Nourished Life 10 times, but better. So I am going big again, and in true entrepreneur style, going to make all my money back and go again. And I'm just taking so many learnings. Everything's cash. Actually, the reason that I bought the warehouse is because I'm not doing rent. I'm not paying anyone's rent anymore. All of the products that I have in the warehouse are all cash up front. Everything's cash. So I won't get myself into that situation again. If everyone stops spending all of a sudden, then it doesn't matter. I don't have the overheads. I'm not going to have, lots of permanent staff this time. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing differently, but better.
So for other aspiring entrepreneurs listening in, what advice would you have for them about turning their passions into a sustainable, thriving business? Like having to go from, obviously you're a person with a lot of passion, but then that passion turns into a warehouse, and turns into something quite big, quite quickly.
Let me think of 5 things that I'm going to do differently this time, that I'm giving myself as a new entrepreneur the advice, and share it with everybody else. I think running a cash business is super important. Don't have credit. And so my example of buying the warehouse is, if my business fails, it's not going to fail, right? But if it did, because I'm very risk adverse now, if it did, the warehouse will rent out to somebody else. It's an asset. And so owning as much of your properties and your stock and all of your assets rather than rent, that's probably the biggest learning. The second learning is, don't go into business with anybody else. As soon as you go into business with anyone else, then they just mess it up for you. So don't get a partner. I was listening to a podcast the other day saying, you should find a really good business partner, and that investors are looking for companies that have co-founders. You do it yourself and you own it. So again, it's about ownership, because, then you make a mistake, you own that mistake, it's yours. So there's that. Keep your overheads low. I do not think you need to hire any staff anymore in this day and age. I think that you can get a team of web developers and experts and pull them in when you need to. And you can get labor hire, use a labor hire company, so you don't have to pay payroll tax and all of the insurances and everything that come, and all of the complications that come with staff. If I look back in my last 2 businesses, I would say the biggest problems that we faced as businesses was always around staff, and staff not turning up and opening up stores, and they just wouldn't turn up. So minimize the commitment to staff. That's 3 things. Something else that I learned that is unbelievable. At Sands Drinks, I was paying 30 grand or more a month on agencies. I had an agency for email, an agency for social media, an agency for this, thinking I couldn't do it myself. Oh my God. Do you know what I did in the year between businesses? I taught myself how to run Facebook ads myself, how to run email marketing myself. Every single agency function that was outsourced, I learned how to do it myself, how to code Shopify, how to learn HTML. How can you use ChatGPT to help with certain areas of the business? You don't need to outsource anything. It's one weekend. Google Ads, SEO. Those things used to be very complicated back in the day when I was doing the first businesses, but actually those tools are very easy now. They're Performance Max on Google, and what we can get on Facebook now the algorithms are so smart. All you need to do is concentrate on good creative, and an agency can't do that. Only you can do that. So don't outsource any of that to any agency. Do it yourself. That's the fourth thing. I need the fifth thing. I found my fifth thing that I do and that I would recommend, and that would be, going to be controversial.
Ooh, okay.
Don't spend 1 cent on influencers or UGC. I think it is the most fake, and if you've got to pay someone that says that's paid to promote your product, that just looks like your product isn't worth buying. The most important thing you can do as a business owner is to get in front of a camera and do it yourself. There is nothing more powerful than a founder-led business, and that is the only influencer that you need. When you are out there and you're genuine.
I think you're so right. That genuine interaction between business owners on things like TikTok and Facebook, that is what makes people buy into their business. Like, you don't need the flashy stuff. You just need to be authentic. So have you found TikTok to be advantageous for you?
Personally, I'm finding TikTok, whilst I spend more time on TikTok than anything else in my life, I find, and I think it's a great app, and I love the app. I'm finding I'm struggling with TikTok personally. I'm 50 years old, and the reason I'm struggling with it as a poster on it is because I grew up in the 80s and that's not all. You can also get some steak knives with your order, right? I'm a salesperson and I like to sell things. And that works for me really well on Facebook because I am talking to, my customer base is 40 plus women. So we all grew up in the same era, and I'm trying to sell something because it's amazing and I'm giving all the benefits of it. I like to be a little bit kind of polished. I want to put some lipstick on and whatever when I do it. TikTok is so different. Yes, you've got to be genuine, but my genuineness is selling, right? So it's really hard for me to sell something without selling it and still be genuine, because my genuineness is that sort of 80s ad. And so I'm really struggling with that. And I think what I'm going to do is not close down, but I think I'm just going to start a personal page on TikTok and try and do maybe business tips or something. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I've figured out a lot of things, but not that yet.
Well, Irene, look, you got your first follower right here you got your first 2 followers from myself and Cess. And from our Koshi's Business Builders account, we are on TikTok. But yes, it is a beast because you have to keep the way that people interact and the way that people, the way the algorithm works. It can be a total mystery sometimes. So it is so hard to game an app like TikTok because it is so much about randomness and, a perceived randomness. Like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and Meta's just so predictable. So I think I have to find my audience and my community on TikTok, and I haven't quite found that yet. Anyway, I have to figure that out.
Well, look, Irene, I'm sure you will get there. Look, we don't have much more time left with you, unfortunately, but what is next for you and Clean Nectarine? What are those big goals? Where do you hope to take this new venture in the coming year?
Well, I've got to get to 20 million. So that's my first goal, because I've got to rebuild. Essentially, it's Nourished Life again under a different name. It's what Nourished Life used to be, not what Nourished Life is now, under a different name. So I've got to get there, and I'm in less of a rush to do it in 4 years. This is my life now. This is all I want to do. I have thought about all of the other things I could do. I could retire. I could be on the boat. I could do anything that I wanted. All I want to do is help women find amazing products that are not just better for them than you can get elsewhere, but really, really wonderful products that is going to really enrich their lives so much. And that is my goal. The revenue part of it is really secondary, but if we don't talk money, back to the 1,000, 1,200 orders a day is probably my goal.
It's a good goal to have, and I'm sure you're going to achieve it. I don't think I've met anyone quite as determined or passionate as you in quite a while, Irene.
I would agree with you there. I think there's something wrong with me, but I just, you live once, and I just can't go. I'm 50 now. I can't go through. I've got a long life ahead of me. I have to decide. I have to figure out what it is that fulfills me in life, and finding natural products and selling them to people fulfills me so much. And I didn't realize how much of an impact I had on other people. I had no idea what a profound impact I had on my Nourished Life customers who, after 10 years, are either angry with me, still shopping with me again now, angry with me that I sold, and just all grateful that I'm back. And I had no idea how special I was back then and what an important thing I was doing back then. And now I realize, and now that I realize that, I'm hanging on to that, and that is my guiding light for the future.
Gosh, honestly, I think that a lot of business owners feel that way because you're driven by a passion and you really just want to make an impact and you really want to be helping other people. Whether you're a graphic designer or whether you're in e-commerce or whatever you're doing, you just want to be doing a good job and a job, something that makes people feel something and that they are invested in you. So I just think that's a beautiful note for us to take away from today's chat. Many of the things we can take away. Thank you so much, Irene. You've been extraordinary to chat with. We really appreciate you coming on this podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to see where Clean Nectarine goes next. cleannectarine.com.au for anyone who wants to go and buy some of those beautiful products. Steak knives not included, I believe. To our listeners, don't forget to tune in next time. Well, I believe this will probably be...
Oh, I think...
Is this our last episode for the year before Christmas?
Yes.
It is, Seth. We're getting so carried away. Look, you will be able to tune in 2025, but I really encourage you to look back at all that we've done this year. We've interviewed some fantastic people, and I'm sure you'll find more interviews just as exciting as today's one and as inspiring stories from Australia's most driven entrepreneurs. So thank you for listening to First Act. Thank you for listening to us this year. And subscribe, share the word, leave us a review. And thank you, Seth.
Yes, great shows this year. And thank you again, Irene. It's been fantastic hearing your incredible story, and you shared so much with us about the highs and lows. So thank you.